Tonight, breaking news as we come on the air, the new and stark signal from the White House, now saying Russia could invade Ukraine within days, warning Americans today to get out now. Thousands more U.S. troops from Fort Bragg now headed to the region. The White House now saying there is a, quote, credible prospect Russian forces could invade Ukraine before the Olympics end. So what's happened in the last 24 hours? And tonight, news of a phone call now set between President Biden and Vladimir Putin. Terry Moran in Ukraine, Mary Bruce live at the White House. Also breaking tonight, Pfizer's vaccine for children under 5. Both Pfizer and the FDA revealing that they are delaying this. For how long and why? And news tonight on that third booster millions of adults received in this country. How soon does it wane? And does this mean a fourth shot is now possible? The horror playing out, 9 police officers shot or wounded, a baby placed on a doorstep in Phoenix when police move in gunfire from the home. The hours-long standoff at Matt Gutman in Phoenix. Just in tonight, the major development in the trucker protest just north of the border. Now a state of emergency, and late today, what a judge has now ordered on the other side of the bridge from Detroit to Ontario. Martha Raddatz inside Iran tonight, witnessing those chants of death to America. U.S. authorities warning tonight Iran is within weeks of having the fuel needed to then make a nuclear bomb. So where do the talks stand tonight? News on Queen Elizabeth tonight. Prince Charles testing positive for COVID. He had been with the Queen, and what Buckingham Palace is now saying. And this question tonight, who else is headed to the Super Bowl? You met them right here, and I'm guessing you'll be very happy to learn their role. Who are our persons of the week?
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening, and it's great to have you with us as we near the end of another week together here. And we begin tonight with this urgent warning from the White House late today on the threat from Russia. The White House now saying there is a, quote, credible prospect that Russian forces could invade Ukraine within days, possibly before the Olympics end, warning Americans in Ukraine to leave now. Tonight, the U.S. military deploying another 3,000 troops from Fort Bragg to Poland, and we are now learning more tonight about a phone call now set between President Biden and Vladimir Putin for tomorrow. From the Russian military tonight, new images of its forces, joint exercises in Belarus. The Russians are tonight still insisting they have no plan to attack, accusing the U.S. of hysteria. The U.S. responding, more American troops and equipment arriving in Romania from Germany. Mary Bruce is standing by with what she's learned at the White House tonight, and Terry Moran leading us off with this new and urgent message. He's on the ground in Ukraine tonight.
At the White House today, the urgent new warning. Russia could attack Ukraine at any time over the next several days.
There is a credible prospect that a Russian military action would take place even before the end of the Olympics.
National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan saying that while the U.S. has not concluded that Vladimir Putin has given the actual order to invade Ukraine, the time for U.S. citizens there to get out is now.
We want to be crystal clear on this point. Any American in Ukraine should leave as soon as possible, and in any event in the next 24 to 48 hours.
And Sullivan warned that U.S. troops would not be used to evacuate American citizens. The dire assessment of the crisis comes a day after President Biden offered this warning about how fast the situation could deteriorate.
We're dealing with one of the largest armies in the world. This is a very different situation, and things could go crazy quickly.
Another ominous sign, talks between Russia and Ukraine have all but collapsed in Berlin. After 9 hours of negotiation, the two sides couldn't even agree to a joint statement. It comes as the Russians conducted their second day of massive war games around much of the Ukrainian frontier and sent more warships into the Black Sea. In response to the daily buildup of Russian forces, the U.S. sent 90 tons of military aid to Ukraine just today, including more Javelin anti-tank missiles, as well as ordering 3,000 more soldiers from the 82nd Airborne to leave Fort Bragg for Poland. American F-16s also arrived in Romania today as U.S. forces continue to bolster NATO's eastern flank. But the White House insists no U.S. soldier will step foot in Ukraine to fight. For Americans who live here, the call for them to leave is hard. 25-year-old American teacher Aaron Starr, who has a job and a Ukrainian girlfriend here in Kyiv, told us he won't evacuate yet.
It's hard to leave your life. Like, obviously, if there's an actual war, I'll leave, okay? I'm not going to live in a war zone. But in advance of that, it's hard to leave.
Terry Moran with us live tonight from Ukraine. And Terry, this new message from the White House today, we all noticed the change in language. They said there is a distinct possibility, those were their words, that Russia could invade Ukraine in days before the Olympics end, and that Americans should get out now. And I'm curious, are we learning anything more tonight about intelligence, what U.S. authorities have seen or heard that then drove this sharper, more urgent message?
Well, David, what National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said about this new level of urgency is that it was based on, quote, what we are seeing on the ground and what our intelligence analysts have picked up, clearly indicating this is not a guess or an assessment, but that the U.S., whether it is through signals intelligence or human sources, has some kind of understanding, reliable understanding, of what's happening inside the Kremlin. David?
Terry Moran live in Ukraine for us again tonight. Terry, thank you as always. We want to get right to our senior White House correspondent, Mary Bruce, standing by live. And Mary, we've now learned of this phone call set up between President Biden and Vladimir Putin set for tomorrow. And you've learned more tonight about who requested this call?
David, I'm told the Russian president requested this call and that he wanted to speak on Monday, but that given the urgency of this matter, Biden asked that they speak sooner, tomorrow morning instead. This will now be their second phone call in less than 2 months, and Biden has been ramping up his public warnings to Putin. Earlier this week, we saw him threaten to block that crucial gas pipeline between Russia and Germany if Putin invades. And Biden has said that personally sanctioning Putin is also on the table. The president, we should say, also today convened a call with EU and NATO allies, trying to rally the West and make clear to Putin there will be severe costs if he invades Ukraine. David.
Mary Bruce at the White House. Our thanks to Mary and Terry Moran tonight as well. In the meantime, we move on this Friday night to another developing headline. Pfizer's vaccine for children under 5. Both Pfizer and the FDA tonight now delaying this. So what's driving this? And we also have news this evening on that third booster that millions of adults received in this country. What they saw during the Omicron wave, how soon the booster wanes, and does this now mean a fourth shot is possible? Here's ABC's Stephanie Ramos tonight.
Tonight, a stunning reversal. Just days before an expert panel was set to meet, the FDA and Pfizer announcing regulators will need more time before deciding whether to authorize the vaccine for children under 5.
Okay, you're done.
At this time, it makes sense for us to wait until we have the data from the evaluation of a third dose before taking action.
Pfizer had signaled that 3 doses of the vaccine will be needed after 2 doses failed to produce a strong immune response in 2 to 4-year-olds. But the trial data from that third dose won't be available until early April.
Pulling back right now, getting all the data is the right thing to do. It should be encouraging that we aren't trying to push this too quickly.
But the delay is a setback for millions of parents eager to get their young kids vaccinated.
When it was available, we got right on it, so we wanted it for the kids, too, to be able to kind of be out in the world some more. So, yeah, it's unfortunate.
It makes me err more on the side of caution over the vaccine, and I'm in no rush.
18 million kids under 5 are still not eligible for a vaccine. But a recent poll showed just 3 in 10 parents would get them vaccinated right away. And tonight, a new CDC study finds Pfizer and Moderna boosters were highly effective at keeping people out of the hospital. But that effectiveness decreased after about 4 months, raising the possibility that some people, like the elderly or those with health conditions, may need a 4th dose.
There's certain people whose immune systems are not functioning at peak efficiency. And so certainly those 65 and older may well need to have an additional dose.
It comes as new COVID cases plunge to their lowest levels since Christmas, and more mask mandates are dropping by the day. In New York City, protests against COVID mandates as municipal workers face a vaccination deadline. About 3,000 workers, 1% of the workforce, could lose their jobs if they don't get the shot by the end of the day.
And back to the vaccine for kids, the FDA says they will work as quickly as possible as that data comes in over the next 2 months. For now, health officials are urging parents to make sure they're vaccinated and take every precaution possible with their youngest children, like masking. David.
All right, Stephanie Ramos tonight. Thanks, Steph. We're going to turn next this evening to the horrific scene in Phoenix. 1 woman has died and 9 police officers were shot or wounded after answering a call. The suspect barricading himself in a home, shooting the first officer on the scene, and then another image. Not the suspect, but another man seen carefully placing a baby on that doorstep. As officers then approached, you can hear the gunfire from the home. The baby still on that doorstep when the gunfire was over. Our chief national correspondent, Matt Gutman, in Phoenix tonight.
Get back! Get back! Tonight, a clearer picture of what led to the horror playing out in this Phoenix neighborhood. The deadly hours-long standoff left 5 officers shot, 4 more wounded by shrapnel. It all began with a 911 call overnight about a woman shot in a domestic dispute. And as an officer approached the home, police say he was lured.
He was actually invited inside by the suspect. The suspect ambushed him with a gun and shot him several times.
Police swarmed, SWAT called out, rifles pointed at that house, when suddenly the door opens. Authorities say this man, who was not the shooter, carefully placing an infant on the doorstep. Then he backs up towards police, hands in the air. And as officers move in to rescue the baby, a barrage of gunshots from inside the house hitting officers. Those who could ran, others hobbling or carried out of range. The street littered with wounded cops, some writhing in agony. 4 shot in that incident, another 4 hit by shrapnel.
Those officers were all able to get back to safety, while 2 other officers returned fire at the suspect.
But the baby, appearing unharmed in the middle of that gunfire, still on that doorstep. Finally, SWAT entering the home, the gunman already dead.
If I seem upset, I am. This is senseless. It doesn't need to happen, and it continues to happen over and over again.
And David, here in Phoenix, we have just learned that that suspect and the woman he allegedly shot, both of them have died, but that their baby girl, who you mentioned, survived that gunfire right there in this doorstep. Police say she's going to be okay. David.
Just an extraordinary and awful scene there playing out. Matt, thank you. We're going to turn now to the major development in the truck protest north of the border. Late today, what a judge has now ordered on the other side of the bridge from Detroit into Ontario. And ABC's Elwin Lopez is in Detroit tonight.
Tonight, a possible end to the standoff at the busiest border crossing between the U.S. and Canada. A judge in Windsor, Ontario, issuing an injunction ordering the removal of protesters. The move comes after Ontario declared a state of emergency for the entire province, threatening fines of up to $100,000 and jail time if they don't move out.
Your right to make a political statement does not outweigh the rights of 1 million people in Ottawa to live peacefully, free of harassment and chaos in their own homes.
The blockade at the Ambassador Bridge now in its 5th day, halting crucial auto parts from crossing. Parts that automakers immediately need. Toyota now saying this has led to a periodic downtime at engine plants in West Virginia and Alabama and factories in Kentucky. Today, President Biden once again speaking with Prime Minister Trudeau.
The President expressed his concern that United States companies and workers are experiencing serious effects, including slowdowns in production, shortened work hours, and plant closures.
Michigan's governor says she's willing to do whatever it takes to help.
It's quickly turning into a homeland security issue on top of the economic pain that they've already caused.
And now a new warning of potential protests in the U.S., targeting this weekend's Super Bowl in Los Angeles.
We're following that situation in Canada very closely, and we know very seriously that this event, this world stage event, poses opportunities for people who wish to interrupt it.
And David, I just spoke to a factory worker who tells me she's out of work and doesn't know when she's going to get her next paycheck. Experts are now estimating that auto workers could lose up to $51 million this week alone. David.
Elwin Lopez from Michigan again tonight. Elwin, thank you. We turn overseas tonight, and Martha Raddatz is inside Iran this evening. And what she witnessed there today, Iranians chanting death to America amid these new warnings that Iran could have the fuel needed to then make a nuclear bomb within weeks. Martha from Tehran again tonight.
On the streets of Tehran, a show of national pride, marking the 43rd anniversary of the Iranian Revolution. The message familiar: death to America. But this year, behind the words, an ominous new development. Iran showing the world its newest long-range missile, claiming it can evade detection and easily strike Israel and U.S. bases in the region. Administration officials now warning Iran could have enough fuel for a nuclear bomb within weeks, though it would take at least another year to build the bomb itself.
But for Iranians themselves, this isn't so much about nuclear power or nuclear weapons. It's about the economy and those sanctions that are crushing them.
Iranians we spoke with described being caught in an economic vice. What are you going without? What's more expensive now? What are you seeing in the markets? Food items are expensive, she tells us. Housing is also expensive. When you don't have enough to spend on those two, you can't go and spend on leisure and travel and all of that. Former President Donald Trump pulled out of the Iran nuclear agreement, thinking tougher sanctions would help him cut a better deal. They didn't. Now negotiations have resumed, but more than ever, the clock is ticking.
And so let's bring in Martha Raddatz reporting live from Tehran tonight. And Martha, what are your sources telling you on the chances here that these negotiations will produce some sort of a deal?
Well, David, they have made some small progress, but they have a long way to go. Major issues remain, so it's still about a 50-50 chance this will work out. David?
Martha Raddatz, our thanks to you for reporting from Iran all week here for us. Martha, thanks. We turn now to concern for Queen Elizabeth tonight after Prince Charles tested positive for COVID. He had just been with the Queen, and what Buckingham Palace is now saying tonight. ABC's James Longman now from London.
Tonight, growing health concerns for Queen Elizabeth after we learned she saw her son, Prince Charles, a short time before he tested positive for COVID.
We can presume that when Prince Charles speaks to his mother privately, he's getting close as any mother and son might.
Buckingham Palace confirming that the prince, who attended an event at Windsor Castle on Tuesday, saw his 95-year-old mother recently. A spokesperson says the 73-year-old heir tested positive Thursday morning and he's now self-isolating. The palace reports Her Majesty, who's last seen Saturday at an event marking 70 years on the throne, is not displaying any symptoms, and they're not confirming whether she's been tested, saying the situation is being monitored.
We do know that Charles and Camilla have been double vaccinated and boosted, and we did get told when the Queen had her first vaccine.
When Prince Charles last had COVID back in March 2020, before he was vaccinated, an aide at the time said that his symptoms were mild. As for the Queen, well, the palace is always very protective about Her Majesty's privacy. We'll just have to wait and see. David?
Let's hope for the Queen tonight. James Longman, thank you. When we come back this Friday night, the Russian skating star should be allowed to stay and compete. And the U.S. skating team still waiting. Will it be silver or gold? And tonight, the new study on memory, a new theory on why older adults find it more difficult to remember than younger adults. Tonight, an international court handling Olympic disputes is now set to hold an emergency hearing to decide whether a Russian figure skating star can take the ice again in Beijing next week. 15-year-old Kamila Valieva, the favorite in the upcoming women's singles event, testing positive for a banned heart medication. She was part of the Russian team that finished first in the team competition, the U.S. team finishing second to the Russian team. Still waiting to hear if they'll get their silver or if that test result will mean gold for the U.S. team. When we come back here tonight, the new NFL MVP and his reaction tonight, and that news on memory and why we forget. To the index of other news tonight, and Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers says being a four-time league MVP is crazy. It's the second year in a row he's received the honor, his fourth overall. Only all-time great Peyton Manning, who has 5, has received more MVP awards than Rodgers now. And to that new study on memory, new research published in Trends in Cognitive Science suggests that older adults aren't able to cut through information as well as younger adults. They say it adds more clutter to the brain. Researchers say the sheer amount of information older people retain makes it harder to keep the actual memory and to cut through it all and to focus on something specific. We can all relate to that. When we come back here tonight, who else is going to the Super Bowl? You met them right here, and you're going to love this.
ABC World News Tonight with David Muir